Hey, Gary here. Welcome to BookMob episode 26. Now, I've got a very, very special episode lined up for us today. I had the great opportunity of having a wonderful chat with the writer, Cate Green, whose first novel, and prize-winning novel at that, The Curious Kidnapping of Nora W., which was released in July this year. And it tells the story of a 122-year-old Jewish woman and Holocaust survivor who has 18 days of her life before the Guinness Book of World Records is going to hand her the prize for becoming the oldest person in the history of the world. It's a wonderful story, beautifully told. It's a page turner, very easy to read, multiple characters with depth, characters with interest. It's funny, it's serious. It's such a beautifully crafted story that it's the kind of book that transcends, all demographics. It's just a great story, and I really love reading it. And I really had a great time talking to Cate Green. And here it is for the interview, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks. Hi, Gary here for BookMob, and today we're going to be talking to the lovely Cate Green, whose novel, The Curious Kidnapping of Nora W., has been released in the last 3 weeks. And just say hi to Cate. Say hi from BookMob, Cate.
Hi, thanks very much for having me, Gary. Great to be here.
Oh, thank you very much for coming. So I was just going to ask, this novel was published in 2023, but you won a prize in 2019, did you say?
Yeah, well, actually, I won the prize in 2020, although it was the 2019 version, of the extra novel prize, which was judged in 2020. So that was fantastic. That was like a huge difference because it's actually a prize which is specifically for unagented and unpublished authors, and you only have to you're only allowed to send in up to 10,000 words. So I'd probably written, I don't know, maybe 20,000, 30,000 by that time. I can't remember exactly. But what was fantastic is that the prize is judged by, at the time, by an agent called Brew Doherty. They've changed the agent now. And so she really liked it. And so she offered me representation. A couple of others did too. And so it's fantastic because it meant that as a debut author, I was able to write my first draft with her support and with her input, which is so rare. I mean, most what they call aspiring authors are on their own, and of course you can buy support if you want. There's so many offers out there now. Some are great and some are less good, and it's often a bit of a minefield finding someone good. So I was so lucky because I had someone who was really on my side, who obviously wanted to help me to make it as good as we could, and who was my agent. So it was fantastic.
Well, I mean, I must admit, because I've obviously read your wonderful book, and it's such a, it's one of those, it's a story, it's a real story. It's got, because it's about, I think it's very close to me. It's about family, the love of family, the hypocrisy of family members. And I mean, I guess for me, in your introduction, you sort of, I'm not saying that you're Nora W's the mother-in-law, but apparently your mother-in-law survived the Holocaust. Is that so? You drew from that?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, she definitely inspired it. I wouldn't say Nora W is based on her, but she definitely inspired the character of Nora W because yes, she happily and sadly survived the Holocaust. She was born in Poland in a city called Łódź. Some people call it Lodz, which is the second city in Poland, and all her family lived there. And she was in the ghetto there for a couple of years. And sadly, her own father died of starvation in the ghetto. She and her mother, and I think one of her sisters, were deported from the ghetto initially to Auschwitz. Her mother was literally killed on arrival, was shot on the train platform when they arrived. And my mother-in-law, Norma, was lucky, I guess you could call it, because she was old enough, young enough to be useful, old enough not to be a child. Many young children.
Yeah, not to be taken
were
out.
murdered. Yeah, and she was.
Have you actually visited Auschwitz?
I haven't actually. My husband is there. Is about to go there. He's in Poland right now, and it's the first time he's been to Poland since. He never went because and in fact, my mother-in-law never went. She refused to go back. I think.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, his father went back, and that was very traumatic also for him. He. As it's quite a common story, sadly. He went to his house in the city of Kutno and found a Polish family living there, and they refused to leave the house. They said it was their house, and so I think for the family it was very difficult. And as I say, my husband has never gone back. He's decided to go back right now. He'll be visiting Auschwitz in, I think, about 10 days time, and it's going to be, and I will go, but I think he wanted to do this.
Yeah, the only reason is because your descriptions in the part of the book, and I don't want to I really don't want to dwell on this because it's such a bigger story than that, but I just wanted to bring it up because it is such a historical event. I think in 1996 or 7, I traveled to Krakow, and this is, and it's funny and I was, because I grew when I was a child, we actually, part of your historical education was the Holocaust. That was it was part of the school curriculum. So I watched a great series a French series that's called Shoah. It's like a 18-hour documentary, and it's brilliant, and I think it's worthy to watch because it really gets to the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's
terrible.
I think I will go. I think it's I'm Jewish too. My family luckily was already in Britain before the war, but I think it's beauty to keep that memory, even though, as you say in the book, and for me that's really important. That for me, what I wanted to write about, although it was inspired by her war experience, I really wanted to write about the fact that she is a survivor, and we had a kind of I wouldn't say a joke, but a family thing that she was never going to die. She was indestructible in the sort of the last 10 years of her life. She had lots of different ailments and illnesses, and always beat them. And we were kind of saying maybe she really is indestructible. Hitler couldn't get her. No, nothing will get her. And that's really the idea that inspired the novel, this idea that a Holocaust survivor would become the oldest person in the history of the world, and kind of.
Well, for me, was disconnect of. I mean, she's living in the 21st century, and she was born in the 19th century, and went through the entire century. And there is I guess there is a disconnect in our modern history now. It started to become like people from the Second World War are basically not around. Or there still are some. But history is getting disconnected, and that's why we need these stories of real people. So, where did you get the title? Where did you come up with the title?
Actually, if I'm 100% honest, it was my agent that came up with the title. I had a different title to begin with, which I really liked, but my agent and my editor felt it wasn't commercial enough, that it wasn't kind of it didn't grab the attention enough, which is fine, because I think they know much more about that side of things than
the business.
So that's where it came from, and we kind of played around with a few different things, and that's the one that stuck.
Because I guess when I'm not. Obviously, your agents did pick because it was. I was curious what's going on.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a book in the early 2000s, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night or something.
That's right.
And for some reason, I read that book, and I really liked it. Must have been the word curious.
Yeah.
And that was such a good book.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I agree.
So also. Are you? So you said your family's Jewish. You've Jewish history in England or France?
Well, actually, a bit of both. I mean,
okay.
Ultimately, all from Eastern Europe somewhere. My maternal grandfather.
Somewhere.
Came from Lithuania. They went to South Africa originally, and then he came to England in the 30s for his studies, and stayed there. And on my mother's maternal side, though, the family have been in England since the middle of the 18th century, and it seems that it seems that the person who came over, and it's the first one we can find, came from Alsace, which at the time was France, but as you know, has also been German. So there's all sorts of different origins. Some came from the Netherlands, but ultimately everybody arrived somewhere from somewhere else, somewhere in Eastern Europe.
So you're a journalist by trade, is that correct? Yeah, right. This is your first novel, or have you written other novels and they just haven't?
Yeah, I've written 2 others which unfortunately haven't been published, but who knows?
Of course, it's
but this is your apprenticeship. This is the 3rd that I've completed. Yeah.
Is being overprotective a cultural thing, like the mother is everything type thing?
Yeah, I guess so. That's part of it. But I think also, I think to a certain extent, she's 122, right? I'm asking the reader to suspend disbelief a bit, but she's 122 years old. So I guess, they arrive and she's not there anymore. It's like, they're kind of worried, I think legitimately and emotionally worried that she's okay, because she's a very, very old lady. But of course, in the Jewish culture, definitely there's this sort of matriarchal figure, the mother figure that they all, there's Nora, who clearly has that role. There's Sylvia, who is her granddaughter-in-law, who definitely wants that role, and then there's Debs, who's kind of the youngest one, who's not really in that role yet, but probably it still has a bit of that in her. And I think it's a kind of a natural reaction if one of your relatives disappears. At least you think, I won't explain anything, but she's gone. And to come back to your other question about the Syrian refugee side of things, I mean, for me, that was really important, because that was another of the reasons that I wanted to write the book. I wanted to write, as I said before, about, surviving war, surviving trauma. And I was writing it at a time where, in Europe, at any rate, I know there's a lot of debate about it in Australia as well, but in Europe, it's one of the biggest debates right now is about immigration and the migrants who, not all of them, of course, come from the Middle East, but many have come from Syria. And for me, that's been a really important part of my life in recent years, is sort of trying to understand that issue. And with my family, we decided, I'm going back, I guess, a little bit, not quite 10 years, we decided that we wanted to host refugee families who were coming from the Middle East. And we had at 3 different times, we had people living with us for brief, for a few months at a time, who had made that journey. One family was from Syria, one family was from Iran, as it happened. And so I lived with some people who had these experiences, which, my idea is not to compare it with the Holocaust, right? Because the Holocaust is a very specific historical fact. But in terms of the human suffering, in terms of having to leave your home and leave all your family behind and go into something that's completely unknown to you, a new culture, I just felt it was important to talk about that today too, because it's not a political novel, and I don't want to make this a political podcast. But there's so much.
Not a political novel.
Yeah, but it's not political, but there is, it's about the human side of politics, because basically, as I can't remember who said, politics is personal. And at the end of the day, political decisions have huge impact on our lives as human beings. And that's kind of what, I wanted to say, these people, whether it's a Holocaust survivor, whether it's somebody who's fleeing war in Syria, they're humans. They have their lives, they have their families, they have their loved ones who couldn't come with them, maybe because maybe they're dead, and I wanted to talk about how it feels as a human being to live through that, and Arifa in the novel is very much inspired by 2 of the women that we hosted, who for me were incredible, because they had given up so much, they had suffered so much, and yet they nearly always had a smile on their face. They were very positive. They tried to move forward. And I'm sure there must have been times in private where, that slipped away. But that there was this real strength that I think you have to, this resilience that you have to take on in those situations. And in my life, I've never had to deal with that, right? I'm very lucky. And I wanted to bring that out as well, both in Nora and Arifa, that there's something inside people that helps them get through.
And it's funny, I understand that because when the character, when you said resilience, that's the word I thought. And she's not a victim. She's not weak. She's actually in a position in her, and she's made her own position powerful in that the way she's just trying to live a life with her son, and with all the, and I just found the way you portrayed her as someone, you didn't portray her as a refugee, as in, you know, some stereotype. I think when people look at refugee, that on the TV, the visual imperative, you have a, you know, you have a boat and all these nameless faces. Now, like anything in life, when you actually talk to someone, doesn't matter who they are. The surprising thing is, I believe that majority of people will empathize. Majority of people, when they actually want someone that they may not want or like or whatever, when it gets down to it, if just by talking to someone, sharing food, whatever, it makes and that's what I think you're trying to do in the book, is that two people come from here and they just get on.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, it was, and I think to me, it's really well done throughout the novel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they respect each other as people, as mothers, as well, refugees in a sense. And I think that maybe, I don't know, refugee families might be a good thing in the long run for a lot more people to do.
You know, of course there's a risk. I'm not going to pretend we didn't think about it long and hard, because you don't know who these people are, whether they're refugees or anybody else. You don't usually live with strangers, right? It's not something we're familiar with. But honestly, for us, it was a really positive experience. They've remained good friends. They're people we continue to see. My youngest daughter is good friends with the daughter of the Iranian family. That they're, you know, my daughter Ruby is 14 and Ronica now is 7, I think, or 8. So there's a bit of a gap, but Ruby thinks of her as her little sister, honestly. I mean, she doesn't see her every day, but
that's great. No, that's fantastic.
It's a real bond. So it's a win-win, which is a cliche, but for us it was really very positive.
And I guess it's funny, the more I'm learning about your personal experience, and I'm thinking of and her daughter and Arifa and her son, and how they develop a friendship, you know, and they're just children. They're just young people, and they just get on. They, you know, and I guess well, again, I don't want to give any spoilers away. It's a really warm, honest, new relationship, friendship. And I think you've done that so well. And that's why when I say to you, it's a great story. It's got everything you need. It's got people, experiences, and it's fun. You really know your characters, Cate.
Yeah. Definitely. No, they're definitely, many of them are people, that I mean, I think in any case, when you write a novel, you know, you spend so much time with your characters that, I think you really do get to know them. But also some of them in the novel are definitely people who are, if not based on people I know, at least very much inspired by people I know. So that helps to give it, I hope.
That's great.
To them,
Nora has a couple of names in the book. Baba? Is that again? Do certain people call the same person by different names? You know, from grandchildren to brothers to sisters.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Nora's full name is actually Dinora, which is a Hebrew word which means avenged, and I wanted to give everyone in the book a name that had a meaning, and so that gets shortened to Nora. And then Bubby is actually what a lot of Jewish kids who, if they're in the Ashkenazi, so the Eastern European branch of Judaism, Bubby is the Yiddish for grandma. It's the same as calling somebody grandma.
Okay, same as calling it grandma.
Yeah, exactly. So that's so pretty well. So Michael, who is Deb's father. So he calls Nora Bubby because she is his grandmother, and then it goes down to the great granddaughter and the great granddaughter. They all continue to use this Bubby, which is grandmother.
I mean, was your mother-in-law, was she very aware up until the end of her life, like her faculties?
Yeah, pretty much actually. Yeah, until really very close to the end. No, she as she said, you know, I've got all my marbles. So she was pretty aware. I mean, in the book, Nora, as you know, is not senile, as she says herself, but she has moments where things are a bit floating, a bit mixed up. She kind of doesn't, and I think, you know, and I think certainly in some of the older people I've known in my life, some sadly have become very senile, others or have had full dementia, and others have had that sort of mix of being aware and then, you know, losing certain things. And again,
losing it.
Yeah, I mean, there is one woman in the world, or there was, who lived to 122 years and 166 days, I think it is, who was French, who was called Jeanne.
And that was the French.
A woman called Jeanne Calment, who I believe.
Yeah, and she's the one that I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
I believe she, at the end, did have dementia. I mean, she was in good shape, physical shape for a long time. And so, of course, in the novel, I mean, as I said before, you have to suspend disbelief a bit that someone of that age could be as intelligent and also physically. I mean, of course, she's in a wheelchair, right? She doesn't walk anymore, but she's, she holds her own, which of course is, unlikely to happen at 122, but, it's a novel.
22. But you did carry, the thing is, though, you do carry it off. I mean, when you read it, nothing, to me, it's false about her abilities. Yeah. And the fact that she's frail, and you go, well, the body probably will war out more than the mind if the mind sticks with it. And the funniest, the love thing about her character is her poker playing. I just thought that was great. which sets off its own for the story.
Right.
Was that a specific character choice? I'm going to make her play poker, like, as in, because it seems to me the way that she, when she goes on the fruit machine, the fact that she's playing cards, you have this sort of idea of what she looks like, with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, playing cards, because it really gave her character a bit of warmth. I thought it was good.
Yeah, honestly, I don't quite know where that came from, because to my knowledge, my mother-in-law didn't play poker. My husband played poker.
Oh, okay.
He's not a poker player. But yeah, I don't know quite why I came up with that, but I just, like you say, I've kind of felt that it gave her this extra dimension. I mean, she probably didn't have a cigarette hanging out her mouth, but she would have had a glass of vodka.
No,
had a glass of vodka next to her card.
The vodka. The glass of vodka.
But
it was good.
I kind of felt that it was an
and also
I just felt it was kind of something that gave a bit of an extra character, and also that, she kind of, it was something that she could give to other people as well. It was a way of bringing people together, whether it's Arifa's son, that it's this, creating links with other people.
Oh, yes, it creates the plot points that you need to keep the story going.
Also,
because that makes sense, definitely. Because he's learning. She teaches him how to play poker, doesn't she? That's right. So that's good. So, Kate, are you working on another novel right now?
Yeah, I am actually. I'm just at the very, very early stages of sort of putting some ideas together and beginning to round out the characters and stuff. Right, but I wouldn't say I've got that far yet. I've been discussing it with my editor, and we're kind of happy that we're on the right track.
Okay.
We're looking at something, I wouldn't say that it's really similar, but what I want to do is try to bring in some sort of quite big themes and big questions, and do it with through character and through I hope a light touch. Because for me that was really important in this book, that I didn't want it to be a book about the Holocaust, about the war. I wanted it to be about people and surviving, and I wanted it to be accessible. I kind of did want people to come away having learned or understood something, but in a way that was entertaining and that was fun, and so I'm going to try and do that again if I can. Yeah,
look, when I picked up and I read the blurb and all that, I had in my, when you pick up a book and you go, I'm interested in this, and you have a picture of what it's going to be. For some reason, you go, it's going to be about this. So I did pick it up expecting to be Holocaust heavy, so to speak.
Okay.
But then, what I'm saying is I learned that, it just didn't need to be, because it's the character. It's the story about someone who happened to go through, but I didn't horrible and desperate but it's about this woman's life who's still engaging. She still meets people. She still wants to live. She doesn't care about being the oldest woman on the planet, I don't think. I mean, I think Debbie cares more about it than anyone. And Debbie and her father seem very different again. It's almost like Debbie's a bit more like Nora when younger.
Right, yeah.
Her mum and dad seem very superficial in some ways,
Yeah, I guess. I mean, her mother definitely. Her father, I think he's one of those men, who just kind of gets on with it. He's a bit of a pushover, he doesn't really stand up to his wife, and kind of a bit of a, Deb's, I think, is his favorite, and he lets her get away with things the same way as he lets her mother get away with things. I think he's just one of those kind of, he likes an easy life, The more he says yes to the women in his life, the easier his life is, kind of thing.
And I guess he's saying yes because, again, saying yes is not, it's not like it's going to change your life. It's part of the way that the marriage works.
Right.
You know what I mean? Listen to your wife. What do they say? A happy life. I don't know. Happy wife, long life, or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So let's see. I was thinking about how many. I really could see the Curious Kidnapping of Nora W as a TV series because there's so many different characters. Like real characters that people could get stuck into because it's a family.
Right.
I think maybe. I mean, maybe a movie, but I mean, has anyone suggested anything like that to you at this point?
Well, actually not yet. But I mean, obviously it would be wonderful. I mean, going back a couple of years when I decided to sign with my agent, I had a request from another agency. They wanted to represent me, and it was kind of quite amusing because they're very much what they call a talent agency as opposed to a literary agency. And one of the first questions they said to me, although the guy who did their TV rights or their screen rights said to me, so he said, so which platform do you see this on? Did you see it on Netflix or Amazon Prime? And I'm like, okay. I hadn't really thought of that. So I mean, I think.
No, but it's funny because I want to promote reading, but I always, because I know, I mean, I'm not saying people don't read. They don't read as much as they used to, I would suggest.
Yeah, right.
And the reading experience, that's what I always try and tell. The reading experience is if you don't do it because you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
But I always end, if something's so visually well done, like your book,
right,
you go, well, the easiest, most accessible way for most people to gain the story. But then, have you done an audio version of this book, Cate?
There is an audio version. Yeah, there's an audio version.
And did you do the voice?
I didn't. No, they decided they've used 3 actresses, one for each of the main voices, and it works well actually. I like it.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So I mean, listen. I mean,
because
as Nora would say, from your lips to God's ears. I mean, that would be wonderful if somebody decided to, buy the rights. I'm trying to work out how I can get in touch with Steven Spielberg. Because he obviously has made movies about these subjects. He's very, he's great at people, right? So I mean,
characters.
And they say there's 6 degrees of separation, that everyone right across the world you can get to in 6 stages. So if anybody out there knows Steven, I'm like, hi.
I heard, it's funny you say that about Steven Spielberg because just out of the blue, I heard someone was talking about how, his character, People Rich. And there's this ridiculous film out called, I don't know, about a big shark called The Meg or something. It's about a giant shark, right? It's a contemporary film. Now, no one, but when you look at the film Jaws, it's not about a shark.
Yeah.
It's about 3 people stuck on a boat with all these, the shark is kind of just there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost like, that's the character.
Character
that people related. When did you start what is your writing process? What is your how do you start a book, a novel, a story? What do you do?
Right. Well, it's a very good question. I mean, I would say, I kind of come up with the idea. I think about who the key characters are, and I sort of know the beginning. I think I know the end. I know a couple of things in the middle. I try to I develop my characters a little bit. I take some notes, but I just go for it. Honestly, people, we often talk about pantsers and plotters. Like
yes,
plot
that's
everything
right.
out, you do it by the seat of your pants. And honestly, I am definitely a pantser. I've tried, reading all these books about the different arcs and about this, about that, and people who you have to have the whole backstory for every single character, and you have to have at least, 5 pages of notes about everything they've ever done. That's just not me at all. I just do it.
No.
And the other thing that I do, which I know is really not how people say you should do it, and I think this is partly because of my background as a journalist and as a writer in nonfiction and sort of I also work in corporate communications, so writing quite long articles and things. I tend to write. I don't do this like messy first draft that a lot of people say they do, and they get everything down, and then they look at it again and they say, no, wait a minute, that bit goes here and this bit goes there, and I'll scratch that bit. I tend to just keep writing until not that it's perfect. I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but until I'm happy with that scene or that chapter, whatever it is, and I'm quite linear. And so my first draft was, I mean, I wouldn't say it's obviously not the same as the final book, but it's not that different. And most people don't write like that, I don't think. Most people tend to just, as I say, throw this first draft out. And I don't know, I've tried to do it because I think it probably can be quite useful and maybe doesn't take as long, but I just don't seem to be able to do it. And then, then of course, my agent had a look and she kind of made some suggestions, and my editor at HarperCollins, she definitely, I mean, to give you one example, the second chapter in the novel wasn't there in the first version. One of the things that I wanted to do, you've mentioned the little scenes with Nora that are a bit like a diary, and so I wanted to have these moments in the book where Nora describes part of her experience. But to begin with, I actually didn't want any of those to be set during the war. I wanted them all to be set in her life once she's in London. And my editor
once she came back, once she was in England.
Once she'd moved to England, my editor said to me, I understand, and I, that you don't want this to be a book that's focusing on the Holocaust, but she felt that it really did need one or two moments of what actually happened there. And so the second chapter does have one of those flashbacks, and she was right. I can see now that she was right. And so so clearly the editing process is really important. It's really important to have other people's eyes on what you've written. But honestly, for me, it's just something I have to keep going until I like what I've written. I might, then change my, I also go back over it sometimes. But I just, I need that sort of, I don't know what the word is. I need that stability, maybe.
I guess it's what, stream of consciousness?
Yeah, there is. But
just
then,
getting it out.
I like. Yeah, but I like to find, I mean, a lot of people say, don't worry about finding the right word, just get it down, say what the character's doing, say how the character's feeling, and then come back and find. But I find for me, I mean, as I say, it's not 100%, it doesn't mean to say it never changes, but I like to just have, if I've got a scene, like, I don't know, like at the beginning where, Debs is going to visit her great-grandmother in her care home, and I don't know, the moment where she sees her great-grandmother, and therefore where the reader sees the great-grandmother for the first time, I kind of really wanted, when I wrote that, to, to feel really on the page the emotions that Debs feels, and get that right, and then move on, rather than sort of saying, okay, we need a scene here where Debs has her emotions, and I'll come back to that. I don't know if I'm being very clear, but it's for me.
Oh, no. You know what? Because you're absolutely correct, because one of the reasons that I loved the book so much is because the characters were so real, and that everything was, the only leap of faith required in this whole novel is the age, but even and again, that is managed so well because it's totally believable. I mean, there's no time where I didn't go, no one wouldn't behave like that. So I think what you're trying to express is that you want to understand your characters in the real world, and so that when you write them, they don't come across as fake or superficial. And again, this book is a storyteller's dream because it's just such a beautiful story. Because you've got multiple characters, multiple incidents, and I think people who enjoy reading, I mean, this will go. I mean, I think your readership on this one is across the board. Then there's no what's the word, demographic. I think people would just enjoy this story because it's universal, because it's about people and problems.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much for all those wonderful compliments. It's great that you're a man saying this, because I think it's kind of being marketed quite a bit as a
woman's book,
something for women to read. But it's great that and also when I did my launch event, I was interviewed by a journalist who's a man too, and he had read it and really enjoyed it. But that's great, because I kind of it's mostly about women. There are men in the book, but they're relatively minor characters. So will men be interested? So it's great to know that that someone
and you know what? But the reason men should be interested is because you're getting an insight into the female mind, the whole, the behavior, the characters. Yeah, and and also the fact that you're telling a story. It's not a gender story; it's a story.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that the way we live in our world now, it's so people want to aim it at markets, but the good thing. That's what I'm trying to say about this book. Read it because it's a story. That's the essential part. It's a story, a good story that you'll get engrossed in and get caught up in, and that's what's important.
Yeah,
and that's what you got to get people, men and women, to read.
Yeah.
Well done.
I'm glad you think that. Thank you. Buy this book. Read this book.
Yes,
you can get
buy
it
this book.
Get it. You can get it pretty much on any electronic. I mean, it's available in paperback too, but you'll find it easier to order paperback on. Also, but wherever you get your books, please go and buy The Curious Kidnapping of Nora W.
Yes, please buy the message from me. Buy The Curious Kidnapping of Nora W. because it's a wonderful, beautiful, well-told story, and I loved it. Great. Well, thank you very much, Cate, and I'm looking forward to your next novel in the next couple of years. Then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks so much for having me. It's been great to talk to you.
No, I really appreciate it. It was lovely talking to you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed that talk with Cate Green, the author of The Curious Kidnapping of Nora W. So please remember, you can go and purchase her book on Amazon as an ebook, or you can also purchase it as a paperback. So please support her work. And I hope you enjoyed listening to her and what she had to say. Just before I go, I've spent this week. I got into Dean Koontz again, so I've read 3 of his novels this week, and you kind of go, well, he really has a wide, diverse range of genres, and I'm going to be reading tomorrow this weekend. And I'll let you know how that goes. So thanks for tuning in to BookMob Ep 26 with Cate Green. And I'll see you on the next episode next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.